In the world of source units or radios, one brand has been hard at work coming up with new models with not only the best possible features, but also the best possible sound quality. Of course, I'm talking about Sony. And on today's Connected, we've got product specialist KRIS BullA coming in to break it all down. This is CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM, all about Sony source units. And it starts now. What's going on, guys, and welcome to another CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu, and as promised, we are talking about a heavyweight in the electronics category, not just source units, but we're talking about Sony, one of the most recognized brands in our industry, and we've got KRIS coming in to talk to us about specific details that you need to know about. Now, KRIS, what can we expect to discuss on today's show?
Hey Ben, thanks for having me. I love getting in front of your crew to talk about our Sony products, of course. Today we're going to go through quite a few different features that's in our new head unit lineup to really make sure the dealers understand all the different concepts and things that we do with our radios to provide the best possible solutions for the customer.
All right, guys, sharpen your pencils because Beulah is about to get detailed with it. But first, an opportunity for our partner SiriusXM to remind you dealers out there why it's always an excellent add-on sale. And when we come back, we're talking Sony source units. Don't you dare go away.
Hi, Paul Truman here with SiriusXM. We reached out to some of our partners in the industry, and here's what they had to say.
I can't say more or enough about just what it means to have our unit working with SiriusXM. It's like we're there now.
The SiriusXM service is something consumers want, right? So it's Paul.
That allows a consumer to listen to either podcasts, entertainment, sports, all at their fingertips. It's all about engagement, and that's what SiriusXM provides.
SiriusXM is a huge component in a vehicle nowadays. Consumers expect that technology to be available both in our OEM system as well as the aftermarket upgrades that they're applying to their vehicle.
Alpine and SiriusXM, through our electronics, are able to offer the consumer on the aftermarket side SiriusXM 360L, which is an expanded platform for SiriusXM. And it's really been a beneficial relationship for us with SiriusXM.
As a dealer, just remember, we don't compete with anybody else. We are absolutely one of the best profitability accessories you can add to any head unit that is SiriusXM ready.
All right, welcome back to CMA Connected. Again, we have KRIS BullA from Sony joining us today. Now, KRIS, there's no doubt about it. Sony has made some big strides, especially in the source unit category, constantly evolving, introducing new products. But today we're going to do a deep dive on really what makes Sony tick. And I'm hoping we can start with some of the core features that Sony radios have to offer.
Hey Ben, this is where I get super excited. I love talking about technology and I love talking about how we apply that to our products. So let's dive in here. So all customers nowadays want wireless connectivity. That's the thing now, right? So wireless connectivity with CarPlay and Android Auto is certainly important to us, and that's in all of our new radios. The Identilink Maestro feature is a huge one. So this allows the customer to retain the factory features, maybe like lighting or lock control that's built into their factory radio. They don't want to give that up if they get that higher end kind of aftermarket car stereo put in the vehicle. So of course we support the Identilink Maestro series products, the RR, the RR2, and we are able to supply that same factory control over the vehicle and even get extra information maybe they didn't have in the OEM radio for sure. Of course, we'd be nothing without SiriusXM compatibility. That's nationwide, streaming and satellite radio control over your radio. It's pretty awesome stuff because I love it. I subscribe to it all the time, we have a multimedia interface on our radios that supports all of the advanced SiriusXM tuner functions, including Tune Start, live score updates, and all that good stuff. We offer a great sound kind of quality and customization. So time alignment's built into all these new radios that allows you to kind of get that sound dialed in for the customer just right. That 3-zone crossover, it gives you some flexibility when you're setting up amplifiers or even just the speakers that you're replacing in the vehicle, trying to get those dialed in just right. And then that touchscreen 14-band graphic EQ allows you to customize the sound output pretty extensively. Sony's Bluetooth has always been top of the game, and we've advanced that for sure with our LDAC capability. LDAC is an enhanced version of that Bluetooth. It's a protocol that allows more information to come over. So if you do have high-res files or a higher res output of an app, you can certainly take advantage of that. with our radios. We're offering a new kind of customizable clock layout. This is now available in all of our new radios, but you can choose from an analog, a digital, almost alarm clock style version in the middle of the screen, or remove the clock from the middle of the screen and put it up in the top right corner. This is a very recent firmware update, so if you don't have that on the radios that you've got in stock, just do a firmware update and you've got that in your bag right there. Next up is the customizable wallpaper. This allows some customization and maybe even some marketing to your consumers, right? So we include 4 wallpapers in all of our radios, but we allow you to upload 2 customizable ones. So for a shop, that might be your custom logo or something that you can put on the screen somewhere. And now that you have that customizable clock layout, you can certainly move that out of the center and put your logo right there if you need to. Or you could take a picture of the car, get the same color of the car, whatever it is, and apply that to that home screen. Customizable icon and app layout. This is a big one for me. I never listen to just standard AM FM radio. So I love dragging that icon off of that screen and putting it down in my app drawer. Might move that Sirius XM one over to the right, right? Because I'm always listening to that. But here's a pretty cool thing. Even in our app drawer, you can rearrange those icons to get the most commonly used ones at quick access for you, right? So if you've got the Maestro module hooked up, you could certainly move the vehicle gauges or the temperature control or anything right up at the top of the line there.
You know, Chris, I gotta say, if we're talking about kind of core features, that is a bucket load of features that come standard across all Sony radios, even the entry level ones.
Hey Ben, yeah, this is great stuff. So all but one of our radios on our newer platform have all of those same features. The only exclusion would be the AX3700, which is wired CarPlay only and no Android Auto. That's really the only difference between that one. It's got all of the other features built in. The first 2 units I want to talk about are the XAV AX4000 and the XAV AX6000. These were kind of our entry levels at the time when we first introduced this platform to the market, and they're still tried and true. They're awesome. And they offer all of the same features we've already talked about. And here's the cool part. We've got a shallow depth singled in chassis. So that allows great flexibility when you're trying to put it into a vehicle. That shallow depth allows you to tuck the harness or route some things behind the radio. That empty kind of slot on the bottom with that singled in on top design allows you to tuck that Sirius XM control module in there, maybe some steering wheel control modules, or even the harnesses from your Maestro module in there.
You know, I gotta say, Chris, with the advent of that shallower chassis and the fact that it's only singled in, you're right, you nailed it. Especially for installers, they'd really appreciate. Sometimes these dashes are super tight to play with, not like back in the days. And when you're putting stuff like the Maestro in there, you need the space. So I think that's really cool. And like you said, the flexibility of the amount of applications these radios can now fit into with that shallow chassis certainly helps out a lot for application. But I gotta say, what about the big floating screen? When do we talk about that?
Well, Ben, bigger's always better, right? So that's pretty awesome stuff. I'm glad you kind of alluded to that. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about our XAV AX8500 here. So the XAV AX8500 has a new style of floating face for us, and frankly, is pretty unique within the industry here. The radio itself has the ability to be adjusted during the installation. So the 4 adjustments on the screen here are during the application of the radio to the dashboard. A vertical adjustment, and that's the screen in relation to the chassis going up and down. You have a left to right adjustment, which is unique. This is pretty cool. So if you've got a vent or maybe a stack of buttons on one side of the OEM radio that you still have to have access to or accommodate, you can certainly move this to the left and right, almost 3/4 of an inch. You have, of course, have the standard tilt forward and back on the screen. Most radios that are floating face design have that. And you have a depth adjustment as well, which again is pretty common in the floating face radios. But here's where it gets really cool. After the installation's done, you have post-installation adjustments that are available. And this doesn't require any tools. There's no disassembly. This is simply just to grab the screen and move it type thing. So you're able to move that screen, swivel it left and right toward or away from the driver, no problem at all, up to 15 degrees in either direction. So maybe you'll move it towards you while you're driving and maybe move it back or to the other side if you've got passengers or somebody in the back seat that wants to watch the screen, no problem at all. You also have the ability to tilt it forward and back. So many of today's cars have big greenhouse sunroofs and glass roofs on them. So even with some tint and even with some good application of anti-glare tech on our screens, sometimes you still have some reflection that gets to it, right? So moving that forward and back can help accommodate that or move it out of the way for better visibility while you're driving.
You know, Chris, it has me wondering that the people behind these designs actually know a thing or two about install. I wonder why. I do want to comment on the fact that the level of adjustability on the pre-install side is very in depth, but the post-install flexibility, I think, is really what shines here. You know, when these large screens came out, they looked really cool at first until you start putting them in some cars, and then the users start to realize that without any level of adjustability, you're kind of stuck there. And some days you love it, and some days you don't love it so much. So really nice to see that post-install kind of user interface adjustability. Maybe you have kids playing that want to watch videos at a certain angle when you're parked or whatever it may be, and especially for basically a tablet. It's pretty big. That I think is really going to make the difference when you're showing this or demoing this to a customer. These are great selling points.
Yeah, for sure, Ben. So the other thing that this XAV AX8500 also brings to the table is some advanced tech. So on top of the great flexibility for installation, we wanted to add some cool features that gave you more flexibility on the install side for integration with the vehicle. So we have three different camera inputs on this radio. So the AX4000 and 6000 that we talked about earlier have all of the features we talked about, and so does this 8500. Everything we've talked about so far, the 8500 has as well. But we've added the two extra camera inputs. So you have your rear view camera, and then you have two auxiliary camera inputs. So this could be for maybe a left and right blind spot camera. It could be for a front approach camera or a hitch cam in a truck. Anything you want to do, you're able to hook up two extra cameras. On top of that, those are triggerable via the Maestro module if the Maestro module can detect the data that you're trying to get from the car for that trigger. And we have hardwire triggers built into the radio as well. Okay, so either way, Maestro or the hardwire triggers can trigger the camera inputs on these with no problem. On top of that, with this big HD quality screen on the 8500, we wanted to make sure that you could get some video into it, right? So all of our radios on this new platform support USB input with an MP4 or MPEG file. So any of them can play a USB file, no problem. However, we have two models that have the HDMI input. That's the XAV AX6000 and the XAV AX8500 that we're talking about now. The big difference on the 8500 is this is the first Sony in-car radio that has an HDMI input with the HD quality screen. So you're getting the best of the best, the high connectivity with portable media devices that can play HDMI output, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, if you've got one somehow mounted in your vehicle, because they're pretty big. But whatever that source is, you can get it into the radio for sure. And then, of course, that HD quality screen is beautiful. You adjust that towards the back while you're sitting there waiting for your kids to get done at the park or something like that. They can watch a video while they're waiting on mom at the hairdresser, whatever it is. You've got full capability there. And then on top of that, we've still kind of brought forth that same high flexibility capability during the installation. So you have all the adjustments for the screen. That's kind of for the presentation effect. But on the back end, if we had a standard doubled in size, chassis on it, it would be very difficult for you to install. So we wanted to do just a singled in chassis for sure. Keep everything nice and compact. That gives you space above or below that chassis to make sure you have a place to set your modules or route the wiring harnesses.
All right, so far, if you're just tuning in, we've covered some entry-level to mid-tier product from Sony in the source unit category. We've covered the AX4000, the AX6000, and just now you've heard Chris talk about the newer AX8500 and all its great features. Well, I guess there's only one category left because we've got to address the higher-end audiophile style customer that really demands the best sound performance. And when it comes to Sony, obviously they have some mobile ES models.
Yeah, Ben, listen, Mobile ES is the cream of the crop, right? It's the pinnacle of everything that we do in terms of sound quality and sound reproduction. So let's dive in and take a look at these models. So the XAV 9500 ES is a great unit. It's very similar to what you just saw in the AX 8500 in that it offers that floating face 10.1-inch HD quality screen. It does have a textured anti-glare coating on it, so it gives a little bit higher end feel on the glass than you would get on that 8500. It loses the HDMI input, but it gains some of the Mobile ES features on sound quality that you don't have in the 8500. This radio and all of its features are also offered in a 7-inch HD quality screen. So the XAV 9000 ES is its little brother, right? Same exact features between the two head units. And these radios have all of the core features we talked about earlier in this segment, except for the HDMI input, right? So that's the only thing kind of missing on these two. But you gain a couple cool things. One of which is this ESS 9080Q 32-bit DAC. This is the heart and soul of the sound quality reproduction in these Sony Mobile ES head units. Offers the highest quality sound reproduction in a vehicle in a source unit. It's pretty awesome stuff for sure. This has HyperStream technology which upgrades any of the sources that you have automatically, and of course includes that LDAC high-end Bluetooth. But with the LDAC on these, you're able to actually reproduce and stream through a high res signal all the way through from your mobile device that's streaming it all the way through the output of the radio. Whereas the other ones, although they have LDAC, they don't have the high res output capability. On top of that, you've got some sound customization features that are really cool. The top left and top right screens on this this presentation here look very similar, right? Those are exactly the same setup as our core line units. However, the new one is the parametric EQ here at the bottom. This allows a technician to kind of dial in, correct the soundscape in the vehicle itself, and then kind of put the salt and pepper on the potatoes. It's kind of a term I love to use with that graphic EQ on the top right there. So that's a feature that's not available on the core line. It's only available on the Mobile ES series, and it's the result of having that high-end DAC on board.
And there you have it, some really high-end features for those of you who absolutely are looking for the best sound quality possible in your vehicle, coming to you from the Mobile ES units from Sony. Now, I got a question, Chris. We covered a lot of features and different models on today's Connected. I got to be curious, how is anybody supposed to keep up with this all? I mean, I know you know it all, but is there an easy way to kind of track which unit has what features?
Come on, man, it's easy. I mean, I remember it all. You can too. No, I get it. It's a lot of stuff to throw at somebody. And as a retailer, especially with competitors, right? Because some of their models have features and they pull features, or you might have similar model numbers that have a feature or don't have a feature, and they're at the same price point. So you're kind of trading, one for one type on the feature set. We don't do that. We have a pretty well tiered system where we kind of go up in the food chain. You're always getting a feature as you move up the model number, and of course the price indicates that as well, right? It's very rare when we have a similar price point and feature set. So we've created this really handy dandy little chart here of which radios have what, just for quick reference on this video. And your distributor, of course, has one of these kind of head unit comparison charts from us that we can provide with you, no problem. So you'll notice that most of the core features are shared across the entire lineup. That wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, Maestro, of course, camera inputs, of course, across the whole lineup. The camera inputs go up to 3 on the 8500, the 9500 ES, and the 9000 ES. And the screen type is different. So HD quality on 9500, 9000, those are the ES models. And of course, that AX 8500 that has that 10.1-inch floating face. The ESS DAC, so that's the big kind of heart and soul of our sound quality reproduction. That's only on the Mobile ES series, okay? We have great sound coming out of our other decks with no problem there, but that extra degree of professionalism and sound quality comes out of the Mobile ES. You have USB file video playback on all of them, and you have HDMI input on both the 6000 and the 8500. Of course, the 9500 ES and the AX 8500 are our 10.1-inch floating face designs with a singled-in chassis. And the other three models, that 9000 ES, the 6000, and the 4000, all have that shallow depth singled-in on top chassis design.
And that was, of course, product expert KRIS BullA coming on to talk about Sony source units. A full breakdown for you guys, every little detail, all the core features, and of course, a breakout of all the models all the way up to the Sony Mobile ES models. So, if you're interested in finding out more details about any of the products covered on today's show, make sure you click the link on the screen. And if you happen to be tuning in from Canada and you're a dealer in Canada, you want to become the next Sony dealer, make sure you hit up our good friends at Gentech International, as they are the official and exclusive distributor of all things Sony car audio in Canada. Now, here's my takeaway, and I think Chris did a great job not only going through point for point all the features, but I think that last chart really summarized it. And here's my takeaway. Sony offers a very clean and simple offering when it comes to source units. Not only are you benefiting from, of course, the globally recognized name, as well as the very signature looking GUI and all its great features, but you have a line that is simple, that goes from a incredible feature set from the get-go, and as you step up, you add more features. It's easy to explain to a customer, and some of these features are very high value, all the way from extra camera inputs all the way up to some really high-end, high-res audio type stuff that discerning listener is looking for. At the end of the day, this is a well put together line that offers not too many models, so it's easy to digest and easy to sell through. That's it for this CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.